My name is Andrew Montana. We're dressed up in the Phil apparel for today because there are some very special moments going on in this episode. Anyway, today is the season 19 finale for Hitting the Field's main show. And unfortunately, it is a very somber day here in the network, which I'll get into in just a little bit. So to kind of counteract that, we're going to be playing some Fixer Up or No Frozen. We've got NFL segments, we've got NBA segments in which we're going to be looking at the worst of the worst teams in both of the respective leagues. And we're going to see what we can do to kind of refabricate, rebuild, reorganize, restructure for the future of these respective teams. We're going to be playing the best kind of GM we could possibly be, but at the end of the day, we're just college kids. We're here to have some good fun. And then last but not least, main show's main trademark is usually the rant at the end of the segment. But once again, it's me. So I will be giving you guys my top 10 all-NBA list because it's insane. There's so many legendary players, obviously, to play the game, and somebody is going to get pissed at the end of the night based on my selections. So to tune in to all that and much, much more, this is the season 19 finale of Hitting the Field's main show. So don't go anywhere because we'll be right back after this commercial break. And I forgot my intro. So let's go to commercial.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
And welcome back once again to my right-hand side. We've got the one, the only, Nick Cohen. Do you want to just briefly introduce yourself as a Dolphins fan because we're speaking of bad teams?
That's awful. I specifically was not going to talk about the Dolphins today because you guys have heard me do that enough this semester. But, yeah, we stink. Shout out Mike McDaniel, should have been fired a while ago. Shout out Chris Greer. Shout out Stephen Ross, the owner. Very unfortunate situation for the Dolphins. But I'm Nick Cohen. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on. And yeah, shout out Steve Ross. Without him, I wouldn't be here. Anyway, to my left-hand side, Justin Barnes, one of the other members of Hitting the Field Network that is going to be stepping off after this. So any just kind of final words, because you're going to be on nighttime, your last time in front of the camera, physically, for us, not according to the audience. But how's your journey been?
It's been good. I wish I found. I think I said this on nighttime. I wish I found out this program earlier. It's been a blast. It's been one of the few times I've actually enjoyed going to school. So I owe it all to you guys, and I'm glad to be a part of this, even if it was for a few months.
Absolutely. Highly appreciated to have you here anyway. But yeah, we're going to be looking at some of the bottom tier teams in the NFL and seeing what we can do to kind of fix them for a brighter future. Justin, I'll start it off with you. We had some high expectations for this team coming into the season, myself in particular, but it hasn't really panned out. AFC East, I understand.
Whatever.
But unfortunately, that hasn't really panned out for this team. Who do you got for us?
Now I got the New York Jets. Originally, I was going to talk about the Cowboys because the Cowboys are disappointing every year. But the Cowboys are so bad that Jake Paul now has more victories in their stadium than they do. But I talked about them on Girl Scout games, so there's no point in beating a dead horse. The Jets have always been disappointing, just from because Nick and I are both Dolphins fans.
Yes.
It's been established. So having that outlook eye and seeing, man, the Jets always were like a win that we can count on every single year.
Or two.
Yeah, 2 wins we can count on every single year. I think we swept them pretty frequently. So the Jets have always been disappointing ever since I've been alive, really. I mean, I would say the Dolphins have also been disappointing, but I think the Dolphins have run a Super Bowl more recently than the Jets have.
1973 was the last time the Dolphins won it.
Exactly. That's how long it's been for the Jets. They've been disappointing for so long.
So
Phil saw that, right?
And now.
Oh yeah, he was definitely around for that. I do want to ask you though, how do we fix this going forward for the Jets?
Well, really, you just have to stop talking to Aaron Rodgers. Now, I think because of Aaron Rodgers, they fired Bob Saleh, who was one of the best defensive coaches at least last year. They fired Joe Douglas just this week, and who's doing a pretty good job, all things considered. I mean, he has 2 of the best receivers in football right now, when Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson.
Absolutely.
But instead, Woody Johnson, the owner, is bending the knee, listening to the advice of a known anti-vaxxer and stoner, which is pretty much the equivalent of listening to your grandma on Facebook, right? So I really, get Aaron Rodgers out of the building. That's a great start, right? He should have retired a while ago. He should have played only 3 snaps for the Jets, but now he's pretty much ruining their franchise, at least for the next 5 years.
Interesting. Any thoughts on that, Nick?
I agree, but they're kind of screwed a little bit because Rodgers has a year left on his contract. So it's not like you could. I mean, I guess you could release him, but like it's a contract for a reason. You'd have to buy him out. You can't just release him. He's more than happy sitting on the bench. Even if you decide to bench him while he is like a crybaby, he's more than happy to sit on the bench and earn his millions in dollars a year. So, he's still on that team for at least one more year. They're kind of screwed, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people really are, because if you break down at least how this season has gone for the New York Jets, they're currently 1-7 in their last 8 games, including losses to Indianapolis, Arizona, 31-6. And New England, which is a division rival, so it's not looking real good in New York.
Shout out Arizona. I was at that game.
I was
got
say,
destroyed.
That was a wild game. Did you have any final thoughts for the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Jordan Travis play. I think
soon.
If he didn't mess up his leg last year, obviously he would.
That was rough.
FSU might have done something in the playoffs, but I think I would love to see him play. I will say this: the one thing that they've done right this year is they moved away from their god-awful uniforms that they had, and they made their 80s. They made their 80s throwback permanent, but they messed that up too because now their new throwbacks that they last wore in 2018 look so much better. Anyway, from an organizational standpoint, they should just throw everything out, right?
So there's no real
Relocate.
fixer-upper apparently when it comes to the Jets.
There's already a New York team. Relocate.
That's fair. They're not even playing in New York. But anyway,
Right.
Moving on to your pick, Nick, bars. We're going to be looking at another AFC team that's doing really poorly. And I didn't have as high expectations personally going into the season for this team, but I don't know, what do you got for us?
That's actually not the case for me. I thought that the Browns could be top 2 in that division. I predicted the Bengals to be last, which I'm giving myself credit for because while that's not happening, the Browns stink more. Still, I didn't think the Bengals would be that good. The Browns absolutely stink this year, and they're also just kind of screwed, okay, because their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, is terrible. There was talks about him getting benched, and then he just so happened to get injured so that he wouldn't have to be benched. Are we serious? They still owe him $92 million over the next 2 seasons, so it's not even like they could just release him or even buy him out wouldn't be a smart option because then you can't make any moves in free agency. They're bottom 4 in the league in passing touchdowns. They are second worst in passing completion spread across both quarterbacks because they've also started Jameis Winston this year. They are bottom 3 in rush yards offensively. They're bottom 5 in rush yards allowed, and then last in rushing touchdowns on the year. They've only rushed for 3 touchdowns the entire year. And just to top it off, okay, because the Browns normally have a great defense, right? Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, the rest of the secondary, great defense. They only have 2 interceptions this year. That is tied for second worst. Only one team has less interceptions. You know how absurd that is, especially for having a quote-unquote good secondary? The Browns are a complete mess. I don't know what they're going to do because also, guess what? Nick Chubb, who, he got brutally injured. Luckily, he's come back, which is good. He is old, and he's also a free agent. So now you have a question mark at running back. You have a major red flag, not even question mark, at quarterback. You could still use some receivers after you traded away Amari Cooper, and your defense isn't even top-notch anymore. The Browns are a complete dumpster fire.
Now, I know I was going to pitch it over to you to talk a little bit more about the Browns, but unfortunately, we do have to move on to the very last point, which I'm going to be talking about the aforementioned Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this team is... It's a little bit of a rough patch right now. They're one of the best offenses in the league, and they're a team that when you see that little orange, black, and white B on your calendar, you circle it because you are afraid, especially if you are a secondary. When it comes to passing, elite. When it comes to wide receiver play, passing yards, elite. As you can see on the graphic, they are first in the NFL in passing yards per game. But the question is, what is going on with the running backs? I remember last season specifically because I traded for him just for like a 60 overall brown shirt player. Chase Brown, I believe, was the third string running back. Now he's RB1 in Cincinnati. There's nothing wrong with that, obviously, but there's just a huge discrepancy when it comes to Cincinnati and the rest of the league in terms of the offensive potence that you can bring to the field on any given night. I think if the running game in particular is taken care of, Cincinnati could become a team that go from a team that you're scared of playing to a contender. Now, real quick, while this highlight's playing, I want to play a little game with you guys. Tell me how many points are attributed to Cincinnati's tally at the end of the game because of the run play. So far, it's none. I'll give you a spoiler alert. At the end, it's none. The running game is so bad, and luckily, there are a couple free agents available. According to ProFootballNetwork.com, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, and Jordan Mason are all available this coming offseason, which I don't think would be too bad of a pickup. Jordan Mason's obviously in a really good system with a number 12 overall O-line. According to the ProFootballNetwork.com, he's getting less than $1 million a season, so I think that's pretty good. But yeah, on top of the run game, before you figure that out, before you try to fix that, there's some foundational issues, especially at the offensive line, that I would like to see taken care of, especially at left tackle. When it comes to a football team, everything is money. It's all business. Your most valuable asset is your quarterback, and the first and last line of defense to that asset is your offensive line. And I think taking care of that primarily will not only help out Joe Burrow, but will help open up a lot of the run game for Cincinnati. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have to play fixer-upper for the NFL. Stay tuned, because after this commercial break, we're going to be playing the same thing with the NBA with some of the worst teams. Hopefully, they'll be a little bit better in a couple weeks, months, maybe even years. I don't know. We'll be right back. Hello, Hitting the Field family. My name is Andrew Montana, host of Season 19 of The Main Show. And on behalf of HTF, we hope you're enjoying today's content. But I'm here to tell you about everything else we have to offer here at the network. Mondays at noon, HTF Bets goes live with 3 of the best on-air faces we have in the program. Andrew Gregg's personality, Tyler Brownrigg's sports expertise, and Nick Cohen's versatility make the show a fan favorite, but also a warm light to guide you through the harsh world that is the sports betting industry. On Tuesdays, Frankie Noble hosts a brand new show called Girls Got Game, blending women in sports, the biggest sports news stories, and creative segments that make for a fun and engaging show. Next up, we've got The Combine, an easygoing, conversational, and podcast-style show dropping on Wednesdays with Ty Patton as your host. No changes there. But a big change for The Combine is the set. So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to The Combine from our brand new podcast studio. We've got the lights, we've got the cameras, all for Ty Patton to bring the action, and we hope you're just as excited as we are for this amazing opportunity. Much great content from The Combine this semester, as always. Then tune in Thursdays at noon for our second live show, The Main Show, hosted by, well, yours truly. Here we'll cover any sport, any topic, any story, no matter how obscure, be it basketball, football, hockey, soccer, UFC, MMA, cycling, even baseball. But be sure to tune in throughout the semester for our special shows, including drafts, debates, and much, much more. Lastly, Nighttime is aired on Fridays, where Patrick Previty and Matthew Bracker talk about UCF and college sports. From in-depth looks at campus's top storylines to collegiate records being broken nationwide, let Nighttime be your primary college sports resource. And outside of our 5-show roster, be sure to tune into our other content, such as the Studio Days vlog run by Vlog King Nick Cohen, breaking news graphics on our Instagram page, and much more. As well, make sure you're subscribed to Hitting the Field Network on YouTube, as well as following us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. But as for me, I've been Andrew Montana. Thank you so much for watching, and back to your regularly scheduled programming. And welcome back. To my right-hand side, we've got Tyler Brownrigg. To my left, we've got Diego Ortiz. I'm not even going to get into the introductions at this point, because if you've been tuning into Main Show, you know these two are some of the most familiar faces in town, especially last week when, what happened?
We won the debate.
We won the debate, yes. We'll get into that in a little bit, though. We're going to be fixing some NBA teams, and I'll start off with you, Diego, because, we're talking about NFL teams that I had some expectations for. This is one in particular that I was looking to do okay, but not this bad. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so the team that I'm talking about today is the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, they're having a pretty bad start. They're 3-12 to start out the year. When you look at their team right now, obviously you got Grady Dick, R.J. Barrett, and Scotty Barnes. 3 really solid pieces so far, but the problem with Scotty Barnes and really just his whole roster is that, one, Scotty Barnes has only played 4 games this year. I feel like he's pretty, always hurt for the most part. And then really just this roster, they haven't really found any stability ever since they let go of Kawhi. Then a couple of years later, they let go of Siakam. Obviously, they've had a playoff appearance or two in between, but they haven't really had any real stability. They made that trade to, give away OG Anunoby to the Knicks, and they got back Emmanuel Quigley and RJ Barrett, which, two solid pieces, but obviously it was, not really what they wanted out of it. They're not a really winning team anymore. Obviously they just have a lot of issues that they got to figure out.
Absolutely. Tyler, I know you wanted to mention something about the Raptors going ahead.
I will say this. I think out of all the teams we're going to be talking about here, I would say the Raptors.
The least concerns.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, they
I
have a
100%
bright,
agree.
there are pieces on the Raptors where you should be like, okay, we can build. Yes,
I
you're
would
one of the
be
worst
very
teams in the
happy.
league.
I would be very happy if I was the
RJ
Raptors
Barrett
fan.
has been great this year. He's averaging over 23 points per game. Grady Dick is looking great in his sophomore season.
Dick is stroking it. Like, he's
Averaging
incredible.
18. Scotty Barnes, 19 points in the games where he's healthy. Granted, he's only played 4, but he is back now. Yeah. Now, maybe if you do suck and you do win that #1 pick in the lottery and get a Cooper Flag, this could be a very scary team in the future. But that is,
I don't know
again,
if that's
this
gonna
is the
happen,
future we're talking about here.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, you mentioned Grady Dick. He's dropped 20 points 4 times this season, and granted the small sample size we've got, but Ochai Agbaji, oh my goodness! First of all, fantasy sleeper, but he's putting up 13 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 stocks, 52% from the field, and 45% shooting from 3. Those are incredible numbers and insane splits. Huge shout out to him. I'm sure nobody, unless you're really invested into basketball.
Big
Have you heard of
Toronto
him?
head.
Have you heard of
if
him?
You are. No, I'm not.
Okay, yeah, I know about him because of fantasy, and then I'm seeing this guy's actually really good. So I'm really happy to see that panning out for the Raptors. Again, a lot of the players that we're mentioning are injured. Emmanuel Quigley, Scotty Barnes, even Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, which I would love to see the full team play at its highest potential. But unfortunately, that's a situation right now in Toronto. I'm going to move on because I did see the highlight playing for the Portland Trail Blazers going up against the Atlanta Hawks. So I'll talk about them real quick because it's just been a rough start really for the season for them. They're one of the bottom teams in the Western Conference, but that's kind of what we expected. My issue, nevertheless, with the Blazers is, you can see the stats there. They're bottom of the league in everything, really. But what really stood out to me was the defensive rotations from the perimeter. I'm not an NBA player by any freaking means. Shoot, I am washed in intramural basketball. But when I play guard. I know how to rotate. These guys seem to not be able to. There appears to be some kind of a lack of awareness, a lack of incentive when it comes to closing out on the three-point line, and it's just been really tough to watch because I'm seeing guys close out on opposing three-point attempts with their hands down, they're jogging, they're walking, they're not getting over the screens. When it comes to setting a high pick and pop we showed it in the highlight, but Trae Young is getting wide open shots from the top of the key. Of all people, it's Trae Young. That's the best shot he has in his arsenal. I don't like, that kind of situation. Nevertheless, the Blazers do have a lot of very valuable assets that they can trade away. At the moment, I believe Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton, and somebody else I don't remember are all getting more than $25 million a year, which are pretty hefty contracts, especially for a team this young, this developing. They're, again, bottom tier in the Western Conference. They're $6 million away from the first apron, which is really freaking scary. But I'll leave it at that. I don't know if anybody else wanted to kind of pitch in.
I think another thing to highlight is Scoot Henderson's development.
Oh my
it's
goodness,
just not where we expected. And it's even more frustrating for Blazers fans because you're seeing Brandon Miller, the guy they passed on,
Ball
doing
out.
Great in Charlotte. And again, Scoot, he's shooting 28% from 3.
You remember
it's
last year?
Bad.
Was it 9% or something?
It was bad. He had some really horrific stretches, and it's just not really getting better. You're seeing some more playmaking from him. He's leading the team in assists per game. But just, it's not what you want from the second overall pick in any way, shape, or form.
I remember people saying, I almost fell for it, but people were like, Scoot's going to be better than Wemby.
Nope. There were insane people who were saying that. I do remember this.
It's true. It's true.
I do recall this.
Yeah, but in terms of how to fix the team, I know I've been kind of bashing the Blazers, but I would say just get rid of those big old contracts. You can trade that for a good quality player. I'm talking like 50, 60, 70. Actually, I think it was $90 million in just kind of floating money that's not really doing anything for the team. And at this point, if this isn't working,
it's like it's like you can trade Jeremy Grant to a
Jeremy
contender.
Grant, that's who it was. Yes,
you can trade
yes.
him to a contender somewhere.
A lot of teams would love his services. He's like a Chris Middleton, but just better.
DeAndre Ayton, same boat. Like you have no reason to have these players with such big contracts and who should be on teams that are competing.
For sure. You have great guards in Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson's, to an extent. Shaedon Sharpe, he's been amazing. And same thing with the center position. You've got depth now with Donovan Clingan. They call him Kling Kong now. He's like top 3, top 5 in blocks per game. Yeah. And on top of that, you've got Robert Williams. They're both putting up really good numbers despite sharing the front court. But outside of that, I mean, there's just a lot of, just kind of hanging assets.
I'll take Anthony Simons in Orlando any day. No
Would
cap.
you?
I would.
Because Orlando currently has the best perimeter defense in the NBA. Would you want to change that for Anthony?
I mean, I think we need somebody to just
Run the ball?
Really just be a floor general for us. That's the only
fair.
thing we're really missing.
That's right. And then last but not least, I'm going to pitch it over to you, Tyler. This team has been really, really freaking bad.
It is beyond repair with what is going on in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia 76ers are the worst team in the NBA. And I'm not saying that through hyperbole. They are 2-13. That is the worst record in the NBA.
I want to remind you, we need to focus on fixing them,
They're
not bashing them.
absolutely terrible. Look at this.
Oh, my God.
Dead last in points per game, dead last in field goal percentage, second to last in three-point percentage, dead last in assists per game. The big reason to start is Tyrese Maxey was hurt, right? Paul George is now hurt. Joel Embiid has played 3 games.
It's the same knee that Paul George hurt a month ago.
It's so bad. You have to blow it up. There is no fixing this. You're 2-12.
Oh my God.
You're not gonna make the postseason or the play-in. You want to know what 2-12 teams do? They compete for the lottery. This is worse than the process Sixers. They weren't this bad at any point. They were never 2-12. It is so bad how awful this team is, and then they had such high expectations. Now, granted, there are some bright spots, and when you're
Absolutely.
you have Tyrese Maxey, who is your leading scorer and just came back from injury. Jared McCain, as a rookie, has been outstanding.
2 years into college, and I'm 3
he is a
ditches
rookie of the
behind.
year candidate. But you have to trade Embiid. You have to trade Paul George. Anyone who is worth value and isn't in this team's future long term.
Who do you think would take them?
I mean, if you put Joel Embiid on the market, there are plenty of teams that would be chomping at the
But,
bit. But the longer you wait, the more his value will continue. Paul
That's fair.
George is tougher to trade.
I was going to say, that's what I meant more so.
Terrible. He's averaging 16 points a game this season. Now he's hurt, and he just got this big contract, so you're probably not going to be able to move off him this season. But Joel Embiid, you had Tyrese Maxey calling him out to the media, saying,
I was just
this
about to
guy's
mention that.
showing up late. And your team is just not there in any way. And when is enough going to be enough for Joel Embiid? When are we going to call the process for what it was? An abject failure. Nothing. They have achieved nothing. Not even an Eastern Conference Finals berth. They need to fully reset, retool everything, and try and build around Maxey and McCain.
Any final thoughts before we
think-
wrap up this segment? Because I didn't know we were going to have a rant this show.
I just think, with the Sixers, you made really good points, but I think you might be overreacting just a little bit.
They're 2-12.
I understand
But,
that. The season's over. I understand the 2024-2025
aren't
season
playing.
is over. But there is technically always a next year, and they still have guys that you can still move off of while you could keep Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George.
And you currently, their pick is currently owned by the Thunder, but it
Okay,
is
yeah,
protected. It's
so
a top
bad.
6 protected pick, so they'll likely get it back.
Yeah.
So they could get a top guy in this draft, but
We'll see.
You can't do it with Embiid. It's just
Anymore.
proven at
Anymore.
this point.
No.
You cannot win with him.
The 2023 MVP really has kind of sunk it for himself. I do want to give a quick shout out though to Andre Drummond because he's putting up 8 points and 9 rebounds and he's been amazing. And he's gone from one of the just a role player to a key facet of this Philadelphia team in Embiid's absence.
That should not be a positive.
I like Andre Drummond, but I'll leave it at that. Anyway, thank you gentlemen so much for joining me today. We'll be right back after this commercial break to talk about my top 10 NBA players of all time.
Mason's a huge fan. We're all huge fans. Their mascot's name is Ellie the Elephant. Mason, do you want to tell us a little bit about Ellie?
Basically, her birthday is May 14th, 2021. So she's only 3 years old, but the fact that she's out here doing all this for the team at 3 years old, don't ask me about labor laws, that doesn't work like that. But she's killing it, and her energy, and I think the fans just really feed into it.
I love it. And then Michaela, who's the biggest Dancing with the Stars fan.
I am.
know. Let's show off the shirt.
Can you see it? Should I stand?
He's used to it. Who surprised you?
Joey, when he came on there,
We were talking about WWE, and I was told home invasions happen often.
Yeah,
Can we talk about these home invasions?
how big of a regular occurrence this is. If they can find it, they can use it. It will be bloody. These men will probably be brutalized and injured by the end of this.
It's pretty cool.
I don't like the waves, though.
Really? I like
They could
the
be more
waves.
detailed. Those
yeah,
look waves.
I feel like
I mean, a lot of mascots are not exactly what they're logo.
Okay, but the solar bears have shades. So what would
Yeah,
their
but,
mascot be?
but that's
Just an
easy to
alarm
do.
on the
But,
ground? I don't like the red and yellow together. It's like McDonald's.
No, it's good, and I think it's soccer. I don't know if that's like.
What's a victoire?
We're gonna just move on to the next one. This one's like, eh. This is like below the charge for me.
Taylor Swift.
Ladies and gentlemen, my top 10 NBA players of all time. Man, I was up till like 1 in the morning doing this list, and oh my goodness, was it difficult. The first couple guys, it's kind of self-explanatory. You know me, you know who I'm going with at number 1. I guess let's just throw it up right away. LeBron James. Why don't we? There we go. He is a 4-time MVP, 4-time Finals MVP, 4-time champion, 20-time All-NBA, 20-time All-Star, the leading scorer in NBA history, on top of being the 4th all-time in assists, one of the best offensive juggernauts we have ever seen. And we spoke about it in the debate last week. But not to discredit my number 2 pick, if we could throw that up real quick. Oh, opposite side. Yeah, we got Michael Jordan. He is just as legendary as anybody else in the NBA could possibly be. Sorry, I'm just like kind of maneuvering around here. It feels like I'm doing a weather forecast. But yeah, he is one of the greatest NBA players of all time, in my opinion. He just falls right behind LeBron James. What can you say about him? He's the one of 2 players all time to average over 30 points throughout the course of his career. 6-time NBA champion, 4-time MVP, excuse me, for the league, 6-time Finals MVP. He's an incredible basketball player. Now, this is where I think almost consensus people can kind of agree with this one if we can throw up number 3. Bam. That one's going to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, once again, an all-time great, 19-time All-Star, 15-time All-NBA. The most important part, though, 6-time MVP. He has the most MVPs in league history, and it's incredible to see. Like, I personally, he was way back when. This was before my time, but I really wish I could have seen him play, because he's not a guy that you're just like, oh my gosh, his highlights kind of astound me, like a Tim Duncan kind of thing. But I would just love to see that one day in my life. You know, that's my opinion. Number 4. Which way should I be looking? Bam! Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson, one of, if not the greatest point guard playmaker of all time. In my opinion, he's still number 1 for point guards. Steph Curry is very sharply behind him, though. What can I say about him? The most assists per game in the NBA, sitting at 11.2. Second place is John Stockton with over 1 assist behind him. No discredit to Stockton, though. He's amazing in his own right. But Magic Johnson, man, 5-time champion. Pioneered really the Showtime Lakers with his incredible offense alongside Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, in his own right, one of the greatest NBA players of all time. Now, this is where things started to get a little bit interesting for me. I'm an LA boy, right? So there's going to be a lot of Lakers, and my next one is going to be just that. Kobe Bean Bryant. This was really difficult with 5 and 6. The reason being, I'm just going to take a look over here real quick if you guys don't mind. 18-time All-Star, 15-time All-NBA, 12-time All-Defense. But what really sets him apart for me is the fact that he's a 5-time scoring champion, and he has the 2nd highest scoring tally in one game in NBA history with 81 points. Incredible, stats, accolades, highlights especially out of him. His ability to just kill it on offense. He still gets himself, 5 rebounds, 5 assists on any given night, on top of near 2 steals a game. Phenomenal defender, 12-time All-Defense. Exceptional. But next up is going to be none other than Tim Duncan, one of the other Western Conference juggernauts from the mid-2000s into the early 2010s. He is a 5-time champion. A 5-time champion with the San Antonio Spurs with, I'm talking like David Robinson era, I'm talking Manu, I'm talking Tony Parker, all under Greg Popovich. He's an incredible player. The only reason I knocked him beneath Kobe, outside of the fact that Kobe does have that scoring and defensive side of the ball to him, is the fact that Tim did play with one of the best teams of all time. That's going to be those mid-2000s San Antonio Spurs. But nevertheless, a phenomenal player in his own right. He averaged double-digit rebounds somehow on top of 19 points per game, if I'm not mistaken, throughout his career. Incredible out of him. Anyway, that's number 6. Moving on to number 7. This is where things get interesting. Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon. I love watching this guy play basketball. I'm going to scoot on over here real quick. But the way he plays basketball, you can look at all his highlights, you can look at all his accolades, all his stats, everything, but the intangibles are what does it for me. The footwork, just the ability to get himself open when he's pretty much like in a phone booth against his defender. Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most dominant, unstoppable players. He said himself, Hakeem was the only guy that gave him trouble. For that, I mean, it says it by himself. Hakeem Olajuwon, one of my favorite NBA players of all time, and he's going to fall in number 8 for me. Now moving on, or number 7 for me, excuse me. Now on to number 8. Gimme Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant big men of all time, basketball players of all time. He's like Dario in intramurals. But I digress. I mentioned Dario twice in the last 2 weeks. But no, 4-time NBA champion, 3-time finals MVP. Once again, an incredible career. The only reason I have him this relatively low is simply because every time he did win a championship, there was an all-star guard by his side, whether it was Kobe Bryant in Los Angeles or Dwayne Wade in Miami. But that's no knock against him. He's still a phenomenal player, phenomenal big man. He, on the defensive side, I think he was 3-time All-NBA, 3-time All-Defense. Incredible stat line, incredible accolades out of him. Now moving on to number 9, we're approaching the tail end of the list. If you can't really tell, that's Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain. One of the most, like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like this guy doesn't exist, right? He was part of the 1962 MVP race where he didn't even win and went to Bill Russell. Shout out to him, RIP. Actually, RIP to both of them. But he put up that season 50 points and 23 rebounds. Are you kidding me? He averaged over 22 rebounds for the entire course of his career. He has, same thing with Michael Jordan, over 30 points per game throughout the course of his career. It's only them two that have cracked that 30 mark for their career stats, on top of like, what, 3-4 assists per game? Incredible numbers out of him. Just the stories, the stat lines, the highlights, everything just doesn't seem real. He dunked the ball so hard he broke a guy's foot. Not even Little Tikes does that. Like it doesn't make sense. Outside of that, phenomenal. Once again, phenomenal basketball player. Love him to death. I have one of his jerseys. Actually, I probably have a jersey of like half of these guys. But yeah, Wilt Chamberlain, amazing basketball player. And then last but not, before we throw it up, we threw it up. Larry Bird. Larry Bird would have been a little bit higher for me once again, but there's so much greatness on this list that I didn't want to leave anybody out. But Larry Bird, in his own right, amazing. 3-time champion, 2-time finals MVP, 3-time league MVP. Not just that, but in a time where the Showtime Lakers, led by Magic Johnson, were running the league, he still got away with a Hall of Fame, legendary, top 10 all-time career, in my personal opinion, in the NBA. Watching him back it's a treat. Averaging over 20 points in the span of his career, over 10 rebounds, a double-double for a forward. Are you kidding me? And then on top of that, 6 assists. A very underrated playmaker in every asset of the offensive side of the ball. Love to see him play the game of basketball. And I do just want to give a quick shout out to these last 2 guys. Bill Russell, who just barely made it out of my list. He was number 11. Steph Curry, number 12. Steph Curry, Bill Russell, they're so freaking close. But 7 through 12 for this list literally took me like an hour and a half last night to try and figure out. Everybody on this list, legendary in their respective rights. But that's just going to be my top 10 for today. Anyway, that is about all the time we have today to talk for sports. So thank you all so much for watching the season 19 finale of Main Show. My name is Andrew Montana, and until next season, go Knights and charge on.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.